This meeting. Welcome everyone. My name's Teresa Holt. I'm the State Director for AARP Alaska. I'm stepping in for Linda Kruger, who's our usual host. She is in Indio, California, getting ready to run a half marathon. And her computer and internet access was not going very well today. So I'm stepping in for her. I'd like to welcome you on behalf of AARP Alaska to the third in our 6-part brain health series. Today, we have a special guest speaker, Amber Smith from Alzheimer's Resource. She is an education specialist there, and so she's going to be talking about engaging your brain. And we are so excited for everyone to join us today. We're going to start off with just a little bit of information about how to use Zoom for folks who are not used to using Zoom. If you look on your screen, either at the top or the bottom of the screen, you can see a mute unmute button. It looks like a little microphone. You can tell if you're on mute if there's a red line through it. So you can see on our slide there's a red line through that. If you don't have a red line through yours, we ask that you go ahead and click mute. That makes it so we don't hear anybody's background noise and that you can hear the speaker well. There's also, the next one over is the video button. Again, if you click on it, it will change it. If there's a red line through it, it means your video is not showing. We ask, in order to keep the bandwidth good for everyone, to everyone go off camera, except those who are speaking, which will be the speaker and myself today. So go ahead and look at your camera. If it doesn't have a red line through it, go ahead and click on that. The next button is participants. If you want to see folks who's attending, you can click on that button. It'll bring up a little box and it'll show you the folks who are attending. If you're on, we'd love to know your name. You can just go click over to your name, and then there's a little 3 dots, or they call it ellipse. Click on that, and you can actually put your first name in. It's just nice when we see folks, their names. So if you don't have your name already on there, you can change your name that way. The next button over is the reactions button. If you click on this icon, you can see that you can raise your hand. So if you don't want to type your question in chat and you want to raise your hand and ask a question verbally, you can raise your hand and then we'll call on you, and then you can unmute yourself and ask your question verbally. One other thing I just want to share is that we are recording this so that you can watch it later. And also for the folks who couldn't join us today, they can watch it. And Patrick Curtis, who's our outreach director, will be sending everyone an email that has a link to the recording, the PowerPoint, and then some links to some of the resources that we're going to be talking about today. So you'll get that hopefully this afternoon, but if not, as soon as we can get it out. All right, I do want to just give a short disclaimer. AARP has asked us to do this. This is intended to be an informational session only and does not constitute any medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. You should always seek the advice of a physician or other qualified healthcare provider regarding your personal health and before beginning or changing any activity, treatment, or program. AARP is not responsible for any decisions or actions taken in reliance upon or as a result of the information from this event. The information we're covering today is just really about how people can change their lifestyle to support brain health. I do want to share real quickly a little bit about AARP. So we are a nonprofit, nonpartisan membership organization for people over the age of 50. Although anyone of any age can join and become a member or a volunteer. We have 38 million members nationally and 77,000 members in Alaska. And our mission really is to empower people to choose how they live as they age. And we do this several ways. And we're going to talk about that on the next slide. But the most important thing is we encourage people to save for retirement, so they have many opportunities and they can choose how they want to live as they age if they have enough funds. To stay healthy and fit, including brain health, that helps you be independent and stay in your own home, which is what most people want to do. To build strong relationships with others. We know that that helps both to have caregivers in your life, but also it gives your life meaning. And then the last thing is to have meaningful activities, something that it's a passion, something that you love to do. Those are all ways to stay healthy and have as many options as you can as you age. We work in several different ways. We work through advocacy, which is on national issues. You'll quite often see commercials or news that we have been working on saving Social Security, working on Medicare. Most recently, we did a big push to get prescription drug prices lowered and things covered for Medicare, prescription drugs covered on Medicare. On the state level, we do a lot of advocacy. We work on a sustainable state budget, funding for senior grant programs, healthcare issues. Telehealth was something that we worked on during COVID. We also offer education opportunities, such as this education opportunity on brain health, but we'll have another one in the fall on using technology that we'll do in partnership with Senior Planet. Veteran services. We're working on getting a gardening series going for the spring. Fraud prevention, caregiving, financial planning, all of those things. We will be hosting events either online or in person. We have membership engagement, so we host usually at local communities, social groups. We have movies for grown-ups. We have a couple movies for grown-ups opportunities coming up in Anchorage and Mat-Su. Guest lectures. This fall, we're hoping to do an online exercise group over the winter so people could exercise in their own home, and many other events. And then lastly, we do our work through community action. So we have community action teams in Juneau, Ketchikan, Anchorage, and Mat-Su that are working to make their communities more age-friendly. If you're interested at the end, if you're interested in volunteering to help make any of these things happen, at the last slide, we will have all of our contact info. So I want to start with some good news. Until recently, the prevailing scientific wisdom held that the human brain was pretty much fixed early in life. Experts believed that at birth, our brains had all the cells they were ever going to have. Well, based on today's research, we know that that is not true. The good news is, regardless of our age, our brain is constantly changing and can make new nerve cells. We can do a lot to take charge of our brain health and improve our quality of life. Experts say that only about 30% of physical aging can be traced to our genes. The rest is up to us. That's 70%. AARP's Global Council on Brain Health has identified 6 pillars of a lifestyle that supports brain health, and that's what this series is about. We already had a presentation on eating, exercise. Today we're talking about engaging your brain. Next week we'll be talking about the benefits of being social and connections with other people. And then the week after that, managing stress. And then our final session will be on restorative sleep. And I'd like to welcome today Amber Smith, who's an education specialist from the Alzheimer's Resource of Alaska. She's going to share information on how engaging your brain on a regular basis can help maintain a healthy brain. Amber has been an education specialist with the Alzheimer's Resource of Alaska since 2008. She is a graduate of the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine and completed her residency training in neurology. Her work at Alzheimer's Resource of Alaska focuses on supporting and educating family caregivers, training professional providers, and raising public awareness about Alzheimer's disease and related dementia. Welcome so much, Amber, and thank you for joining us today. I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you so much for having me. And thanks for inviting me to share on engage your brain as one of the topics, one of the pillars of brain health. Maybe one of the most fun topics, I don't know. They're all pretty fun, but today I'm going to be talking about engaging your brain. You know, Teresa just already went over why we might want to follow these pillars of brain health, right? That most of us want to stay as sharp as possible as we age and increase our chances of staying in our own home, getting to do the things we want to do, participating in activities we like, and potentially reduce our risk of getting Alzheimer's or another brain disease. So today I'm going to be talking about engaging your brain. I'm going to be talking about the what, when, why, and how of engaging your brain. I'm going to touch on some facts and some myths about our brain health. Teresa already touched on one of those, which is, you know, I was taught back when that, yeah, our brains were set. You got what you got. And it turns out that's not the case at all, right? We're learning things all the time about brains making new cells, making new connections, and how we can strengthen them. So I'm going to touch on some facts and myths. And then hopefully by the end of our time together, which is the end of this hour, you're going to make a plan for yourself to think about what your next step might be in engaging your brain. So let's look at our next slide. So you're all here. I'm excited. You've signed up for this talk called Engage Your Brain. So what does engage your brain mean? Can you put that into your own words? And you're welcome to use the chat. I love the chat because it's a way that we can all learn from each other. But if you're using your phone or you just don't like to use chat, I ask you when I ask questions just to really think to yourself, what does engage your brain mean? Next slide. So I just did a quick brainstorm myself, thinking like, what does that mean in my own words? So to me, engage your brain means to get mentally active, or to challenge yourself, or to learn something new, or to improve your thinking skills, or to actively think about a topic. All right, so in the chat box, I have learn new things. Yes, really engage your brain just means to get your brain into the game, right? Next slide. So what do you think? I've heard this my whole life. Well, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. So is that a myth or a truth? Somebody says myth. Yes, next slide. It is a myth. Here's what we know. People of all ages can learn new things. And we also know the sooner you start, the better. Okay, there's a lot of evidence around early education being protective for brain health, but we also know it's never too late. It's not just about the education we got early in life. We can start engaging our brain, building our brain strength right now. So we can do that starting today. It's never too late. Next slide. So what about this? I hear this all the time. I've heard this in some of the other talks of the pillars of brain health. Use it or lose it. When we're talking about brain health, when we're talking about thinking abilities, do you think that's a myth or a truth? Next slide. That's true. That's right. Use it or lose it is true. So the use it or lose it hypothesis suggests that mental activity in general might improve cognitive function. And there's a lot of evidence out there in different areas. You should know that when we start talking about studies and what's been proved or what we think, humans are really complex, right? So it's hard to sometimes sort out all the different factors going into somebody's cognitive function decreasing or staying the same or improving. But one area that we have some interesting research findings is around retirement. And some studies show that if you have a job that keeps you mentally active and then you retire, some people tend to get a decrease in some of their thinking skills. And does that mean like, oh no, don't retire? Not necessarily. That's one option, right? If you have a job you love and it's keeping you mentally active, one option is keep your job. However, another option is to do some retirement planning around how am I going to keep mentally active so those changes don't affect me. So there is evidence around this use it or lose it idea, and that we can do things to keep ourselves sharp. Next slide. So underlying the idea of use it or lose it, right? Or underlying the idea of engaging your brain to keep yourself sharp or reduce your risk of getting a thinking problem later are two ideas. And I think that if you go out and you read a lot of articles, the main term you're going to see is called cognitive reserve. But the Global Council on Brain Health, and we're doing their 6 pillars here, right? They break it down a little bit further, and they talk about the idea of brain reserve and the idea of cognitive reserve. So this is why we want to engage our brain. The idea of building up our brain reserve or preserving our brain reserve is the idea that we can build new brain cell connections, right? So your brain works by you have billions of cells, and they work by connecting with each other, reaching out and almost touching each other and sending each other messages. And the idea of doing mentally challenging activities is that we can build up new brain cell connections a lot like building up a muscle. And when we get into the how of engaging your brain, it's going to be a little bit like building up a muscle, right? So if I want to build up the strength in my muscles, I'm going to have to do something physically that's a little bit hard for me, right? If I just do the things I always do, if I take the same walk every day and I never go further or faster, my muscles probably aren't going to change. So I'm going to need to do something a little bit harder to build up my brain reserve. And the idea of cognitive reserve is that when we do things that are mentally challenging, we're increasing the amount of flexibility in our thinking processes. And so both of those things, building up our brain reserve, building up our cognitive reserve, are giving us protection later on so that even if I get some changes from a brain disease, like if I get some changes in my brain from Alzheimer's, I might not have symptoms, or I might not have symptoms as soon, and I'll still get to do what's important to me. Okay, so sort of like if you think about if I built up my arm muscle, so it was as big as, if you remember Arnold Schwarzenegger back when he was Mr. Universe, right? He had these huge arms. So if I built up my arm muscle so it was that big, I would be so strong. And even if my muscle in my arm got a little bit sick, I'd still be the strongest person here. And I'd still be able to do all my daily activities. So why we want to engage our brain, do things that are mentally challenging, is we want to build up our brain reserve, build up our cognitive reserve so that, as Teresa was saying in the introduction, right, we can stay in our own home if that's what we choose, and we can participate in the activities that we choose. Next slide. So how are we going to engage our brain? So there's sort of two things. They both come under the category of stretch your thinking, right? We need to get out of our rut, get out away from maybe what's most comfortable, and either learn a new skill or challenge ourselves to improve a skill we already have. So if you're me and you don't know how to knit, I could take up knitting And that would count as engaging my brain or keeping myself mentally active because I would have to really think about it. But maybe you're already an expert knitter and maybe you're cranking out the socks just sitting watching TV. And if that's the case, right, if you're already very good at it, you could take up something totally different, or you could just challenge yourself with your knitting, right? You could think like, well, maybe I'm going to try to knit a sweater, or maybe I'm going to try a new pattern. But either way, we want to stretch ourselves a little, get out of our comfort zone. Next slide. So I did a quick brainstorm for myself on all different ways, just really quickly things I could think of that might count as engaging my brain. So learning to play an instrument, taking a pottery class, joining a book group, playing a game, trying a new recipe, meeting new people and learning their names, taking up Tai Chi, volunteering at the food bank, playing with kids, learning a language, taking a dance class, building something new, taking up bird watching. What else? I want us all to try to think of one thing that just counts as an engaging activity. And you can put that in the chat box, or you can just think to yourself. So somebody says Tai Chi. Yes. That's something that I have wanted to try and I haven't done yet. Oh, sewing a new type of garment or article. Yeah, learning vegetarian cooking, folk dancing. Yes, what else? Next slide. Those are all great ideas. Somebody says studying nutrition. Yes, and that would get into one of our other pillars of brain health, right? Eating right. Perfect. So, and if you have any questions throughout the talk, please put them in the chat box or raise your hand and we can unmute and we'll have some time for questions at the end as well. Oh, somebody says yoga. Yes. Okay, so here are two frequently asked questions that I really want to spare some time on. Okay, so a lot of times people ask me, Amber, do I have to do crosswords? Or, you know what, I do crosswords, so I'm all taken care of. So what about crosswords? Do they work? Okay, so I do crosswords, but I'm not doing them particularly to protect my brain health. Probably they count as engaging my brain if I don't just do the ones that are easy to me. To count as engaging my brain, I have to stretch myself. I have to get ones that are a little bit harder, right? Oh, somebody says New York Times Wordle. I love Wordle. Sure, it might be helping, right? But here's what we know. So far, there is no evidence that any one brain engaging activity is better than any other brain engaging activity. So there's no magic to crosswords or brain games. If you like them, do them. But make sure that you're stretching yourself, that it's getting a little harder, and that you're doing a variety of activities. So again, there's no one that's better than another. And that's sort of good news so far, because it means you don't have to do anything that's not fun, right? And I would tell you, if they had proved that learning calculus was the best activity, I would have a big calculus book here and I'd be forcing myself to do it. But right now, as long as you're learning something new or challenging yourself, all the activities are good. So pick a fun one. What about online brain games? Again, I believe that Teresa's going to tell us at the end that they have brain games available through AARP, and that's awesome if they're fun, okay? But the National Institute on Aging says be wary. And they're saying that for this reason. Be wary of claims that playing certain computer or online games can improve your memory or other types of thinking, as the evidence to back up such claims is evolving. And what they're trying to warn us about there is there's some for-profit companies out there who want to charge us for these online computer games. And they make overstated claims, right? And their overstated claims are, hey, you don't want to get Alzheimer's, right? So pay us money and play our computer games, and it will prevent you from getting Alzheimer's. And there's no evidence for that. Okay, the only evidence for those commercial computer games so far that I've seen is if you play their computer games, you will get better at their computer games. And it may be challenging you. It may count as a engaging activity. And if you are having fun doing it, good. But it's not any better than me taking up Tai Chi. And we'll talk in a minute. Maybe it's not as good as Tai Chi because Tai Chi hits maybe some other pillars of brain health at the same time. So just know that there's a lot of good activities out there and pick a fun one. Okay. And there's a question here. What about transcendental meditation? The practice calls for 2 20-minute sessions a day. It provides other benefits and clarity of thinking. Yes, I don't know about evidence for transcendental meditation as far as engaging your brain in the way that we're talking about here as that sort of mental activity. I would say if you're new to it and you're learning about the process, that probably counts as learning a new thing, right? And I think it's really important to know and respect when you say it provides other benefits, right? It might help you with like you're saying, clarity of thinking. It might also, and I don't know the evidence, so somebody else will probably speak to that in the other pillar talk, but I believe one of the pillars that is of brain health has to do with managing stress. And that might be something that transcendental meditation has a lot of evidence for. So again, if you're learning something new, yes. If it's helping you with other benefits, it may be helping your brain health. And as far as mentally engaging activities, there's no evidence for one above another. So pick a fun one. And if you like Wordle, if you like crosswords, if you like online brain games, do them. And if you don't have to. Next slide. So I'm going to ask you at the end of this talk to come up with a plan of one thing that you're going to try to add to your schedule to engage your brain. So let's start thinking about what that could be. And one place to look for new brain engaging activities is in your own interests, right? So let's take a minute. I want all of us to just stop, take a breath, and think of one thing that you have always been interested in trying or learning about, but haven't had the opportunity or time up till now. So it's one thing you've always wanted to try or learn about, but you just haven't taken the time or had the time or opportunity up until now. Okay. Next slide. And again, you can always put these in the chat box so we can learn from each other. Oh, and here's some. Learn how to quilt and relearn the piano. And somebody else says ballroom dancing. Nice. So can I see the next slide? Great. So now, and I see somebody's already done that, but let's think about something you're already doing. Is there a way you can stretch yourself, engage your brain more, or take your skills to the next level? So there's something that you can do that you're doing now where you can get yourself a little out of your comfort zone. Right? So the person who asked about transcendental meditation, is that something where, you know, you could learn a little bit more about it? Or I don't know. You know, I don't know how that would fit into this, or go to a retreat, or, you know, listen to a new teacher of that. So can you think of something you're already doing where you can stretch yourself? And again, always feel free to tell us in the chat box so we can learn from each other. So where are some places where we can look for ideas for brain engaging activities? Somebody says go to the next level on killer Sudoku. Great. Yeah, so it's like, okay, I already know how to do these. I'm going to go to the next level, right? Oh, somebody else is a Sudoku fan. Great. And yeah, if it's fun, do it. So where can we look for ideas, right? So we don't have to come up with all of our ideas on our own. We can look for ideas for brain engaging activities at the local senior center, at local schools and colleges. There can be volunteer opportunities, right? That's a great way to engage your brain. We could look at the library. They might have activities. We could cruise through the section. Maybe there's a new hobby there waiting for us, right? Or just a book we want to read. Oh, we have a suggestion in the chat box of Google brain activities. Yeah, that's a great idea, right? So we could ask friends or family members, what are their hobbies, or what are they doing, or what's that club they always seem to be having fun doing? Again, you can look to your own interests, either your interests throughout your life, things that you've maybe done before. Somebody, I think, said earlier about relearning the piano, right? Something you've done earlier, or something you've just always been like, oh, I want to know more about that. Where are some other places that people could look for ideas for brain engaging activities? And again, I love that in the chat that we could just Google. I didn't even think of that, right? You can Google. Where else? Patrick gives us a plug. You can contact Alzheimer's Resource of Alaska. Yes. We have a new mind aerobics program. Yeah. Teresa says you can check out AARP.org. And I think Patrick's been putting a lot of links in our chat for different ideas. Oh, yeah. If you're interested in astronomy, you could check out the planetarium. That's great. Okay. Next slide. Somebody says, watch interesting documentaries. Yeah, go to the museum. Colleges have classes for alumni and seniors. Yes, and sometimes there's, what would you say, a tuition break, right, for seniors, or free tuition for various things. Yes. So I didn't put a slide in on barriers. I just want us to think about it. What are some of the things that might keep a person from trying something new or pushing themselves to the next level? Or what are some things that you have seen that have stopped you from doing that in the past? What are some of the barriers that can keep us from participating in more brain engaging activities? What do you think those are? What can you imagine as a barrier? Yeah, somebody says it's hard, it's not fun. Yeah, somebody else says how to follow through, right? Procrastination. Oh, there's just no time. Organized time management, distraction. Somebody else says overcommitment, right? Oh, I love this one. Fear of looking silly. Winter roads, dark roads. Yeah, not safe to get out. Yeah, all of those can really be barriers. And I want to come to this. Oh, somebody else says the technology is too hard. Yeah, if we're trying to do it online or if it involves technology. I want to come to a couple of these. So one is that I really want to highlight is like the fear of looking silly. So how do we usually feel when we try something new, right? I mean, am I going to be my first day picking up a pickleball racket? Am I going to be the world champion pickleball player? Probably not good, right? I'm not going to be good. I'm not going to do it well. I'm brand new. And so, yeah, thinking about how is it to be brand new at something? And is it okay to not be good, but enjoy it, right? And to then I'm going to see my progress over time if I stick with it. And I should celebrate that, even if my progress is really slow. So some ways to overcome some of these barriers, and these aren't all of them. Maybe you can think of some more ways to overcome some of these barriers that I didn't put here. But one way is, yeah, make sure it's fun, right? If it's not fun, I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to stick with it. That's just the truth. There's enough hard things in life. I need more fun things in my life. So make sure it's something that you enjoy. And that's where the good news comes in, that no one activity has been proven to be better than another activity. So I don't have to do the ones that I don't like. I can pick the ones that I do like. And then, yeah, as Teresa says, join a class so everyone is new. Yes. The other advantage of taking a class is it can help with some of those procrastination issues. I really like taking classes because I'm definitely a person who, if I don't take a class to learn something new, I'm always putting it off. Oh, I'll just read twice as much tomorrow. Oh, I'll look at that on the weekend, right? Whereas if I have a class and I know every Thursday I'm going to show up there, boy, I want to like keep up with the class. Also, having a class, you've got that teacher there, that instructor as a coach, right? To sort of help you over the hard parts. It also helps with procrastination because people are sort of counting on you, right? If you join a group or take a class and you don't show up, then everyone's going to be like, hey, where's Amber, right? They're sort of counting on you. So making sure it's fun, taking a class, joining a group, right? Joining a book group. I guarantee that would be helping me read more books. Because again, if we're going to meet every month and talk about it, I don't want to show up every month and be like, I didn't read the book. And you can enlist a friend, right? And that can be even if you're going to take a class. If you enlist a friend, then instead of like, I'm not going to know anybody there, what's it going to be like? It's like, oh, well, I've got my buddy. Or it could just be, I'm going to enlist a friend and we're going to walk once a week and talk about that book we read, right? Or that friend is going to be sort of checking in. I'm maybe not going to say, hey, you're my accountability partner, but maybe I am. But they're just going to be saying like, oh, how's your dog training going, right? Has your dog learned a new trick yet? I'm going to be like, yeah. So those are some ways to overcome the barriers. What else? Can you think of other ways to overcome the barriers that might keep us in our rut, keep us from trying something new? We can think about that. You know, we've all done new things in our life. We've all found some barriers to that, and we're all very experienced at overcoming those barriers and figuring out what works for us. So you can draw on your own experiences. Oh, and I love this one. Thank you from the chat box. Engage incrementally and grow gradually. Yes. If we if we try to start too big, it can be discouraging. And Patrick talked about this in his talk on exercise, ongoing exercise, right? That we can, if we try to start too big, we get discouraged. Just like with physical exercise, right? If I go out and I tried to run a half marathon tomorrow, never having run a marathon or half marathon, I would just hurt myself and then maybe never want to exercise again. So yeah, that's a great tip. So just try something small. Don't try to do everything at once. And then somebody else says, eat better, sleep better, feel better. Yes. So when I do some of those other pillars of brain health, that can make me more open and have more energy to start engaging my brain and getting out and doing some new activities. Thank you so much for sharing those. Next slide. So AARP's 6 pillars of brain health, well, the Global Council on Brain Health, and then AARP is doing these 6 talks over the 6 weeks. And we've already covered eat right, ongoing exercise, and engage your brain. And so be social, manage stress, and restorative sleep are coming up. Next slide. So one thing that you can do is to try to engage or participate in more than one pillar at once. Combine the pillars, right? That way I can get more brain health activity in a shorter amount of time. So I was thinking for myself, how could I combine eat right and engage my brain? Yeah, and then how could I add on be social? So somebody says a potluck. Somebody says a cooking class. Yes, I was thinking I could just make a new recipe that comes from this sort of eat right umbrella, right? And then I could invite people over to try it. Yeah, and then for the second question, what's an example of an activity that combines ongoing exercise, engage your brain, and be social? And somebody says square dancing, right? It's social, it's fitness, and if you're learning it, you're engaging your brain. Somebody else says water aerobics classes, right? That's ongoing exercise, you're learning new things, you're being social. Oh, somebody else says for the Eat Right, menu planning for a week with a friend. Yes, so you'll be engaging your brain, you'll be planning ahead, eat right meals for the week, and you're doing it with a friend to add on, be social. Yeah, so as much as possible, when we can, we want to combine the pillars, right? So that we can be doing more than one thing at once and hopefully having more fun. Great. Next slide. So this is my last slide. And I want us to take a minute to make a plan, to really make a plan. What is one new fun thing that you can try next that will actively engage your thinking? Right? What's one fun new thing that you can try that will actively engage your thinking? And you can write it down, you can think it to yourself, you can share it in the chat box, but what are you really going to do? And if you're not sure, what is one place or person that you might look to for some ideas? Nothing comes to you for question 1. Where might you look next? So somebody says, join an online Tai Chi class. And somebody else says, invite friends over to play a new game. Yeah, those are great. Those sound really fun. What else? What will you do next? Okay. Thank you so much for sharing this time with me. Thank you for all of you who could share your answers. I hope that you'll keep thinking about this topic. I hope you'll keep thinking about how you can push yourself a little, get out of your rut, and do something fun to promote your brain health. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amber. That was awesome. I appreciate you walking us through all that. Here's some resources that you'll get when we send out the slides, and you can do, if you want to do a little further digging, you can go there. I did want to talk about, if you've joined us before, you've seen the slide, but we do have a website at AARP. It's free to anyone. Just go to aarp.org brain health. There's videos, there are articles, all kinds of things on there. You can also go to the Global Council on Brain Health, and they have a video and a report for each of the 6 pillars. So feel free to go ahead and click on that. You'll get these links either in the chat, Patrick has put them in the chat, or when you get the follow-up email from today's session. And then the last one I want to talk about, I'm actually going to talk about in greater detail, which is the Staying Sharp website. This, you do have to be a member, but there's some really great things, and it's easy to become an AARP member. It's $12 for an entire year. You can just Google become an AARP member. It'll take you there. You can sign up online, or you can ask them to, you can call on the phone. You can ask them to send you a paper thing so you can send in a check, however you want to do it. But what's really interesting is, at least to me, so I did this, I did the assessment. So there's several things you can see on the top of this slide. There's home, assessment, challenges, articles, activities, videos, recipes, and then best of. So I went to assessment and I took the assessment. And I think what's really important about this is assessments, comparing yourself to yourself. That's really the most important thing that new brain research has said. Instead of comparing to a nationalized standard, that's not as helpful as taking an assessment once a quarter, every year. Maybe when you notice a change, you take another assessment and see how you are compared to how you were. So you want to do an assessment, take a baseline. And so if you are a member, you can go to this AARP Staying Sharp website and you can do the assessment for free. And in fact, you can do it every 90 days if you want to do it that often. And then there's the games, which we've already talked a little bit about, but this might be an easy way if you like to play online games. They have tons of games that are free to the members. Things like Daily Brain Puzzle, Secret Files, Sequence Squares, Pathfinder, Pattern Match, Decipher, all those kind of things. And I would say once you get good at it, then you should be switching to a new game, right? Because that's what we sort of talked about today. But I certainly wanted to just highlight that thing. That is the only thing that we have been talking about in all these webinars, which actually requires you to be a member. Other places to find online activities. AARP has a virtual community center. And literally what I have found is there's so many events here, it's hard to choose, right? They have, like, I've looked up just for next week, and on this virtual community center, which is really basically all the states who offices are putting in their activities so that anyone online anywhere can attend those. You can see things like low impact Zumba, yoga fusion, baking a Valentine's Day treat, learning to play bridge, online dating 101. Literally, there's just all kinds of different things, and they're always changing. And then Senior Planet is now an affiliate of AARP, and Senior Planet was designed specifically for people over 60. So their curriculums are designed specifically for seniors, for us. And they include all kinds of classes, but they really do focus on technology first. So technology skills, using your cell phone, that type of stuff. But now they have expanded during COVID to fitness, wellness, finance. And I just wanted to list some of the classes that they have next week, which is getting started on Zoom, Fit Fusion workout, smartphone photography, Tai Chi, online health resources, the Internet of Things. If you haven't heard of that, it's an interesting topic, and they're going to be talking about wearables, how to use YouTube. There are just many, many, many classes. The one thing I do caution is that these are both national websites, so almost all the classes are listed in Eastern Standard Time. So if it's 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, that's noon Alaska time. So you have to engage your brain and make that change. Let's see, I saw a question here. Well, I'm going to go through the slides and I'll let Patrick respond to some of the questions in chat because we are running out of time. So here are some articles. These are just some samples. Some are articles from AARP and some are others that I found. So 6 ways to engage your brain from Psychology Today. Learning music after age 50. That's an AARP one. You can see because it says Staying Sharp. Train your brain from Harvard Health. 4 reasons why you shouldn't shy away from cognitive screening. So, you know, take some time. Just a reminder that those links to those articles will come in the follow-up email after this session, along with the recording. And let's go to the next slide. So what we want to do now, I'm going to ask Patrick to come online. So we have 2 books that we are giving away to everyone who's registered. And so I'm going to ask Patrick to announce the winner of our first Keep Sharp at Any Age by Sanya Gupta, who is a neurologist. Patrick, are you?
I am here. Good
there?
morning and hello, everybody. Thank you, Teresa. The winner of our first drawing for Sanjay Gupta's book, Keep Sharp, as I sort of can display here, is Patricia Harris, one of our registrants for the Brain Health series from the get-go. So congratulations to Patricia. I'm not sure if I saw you in and amongst our participants today, but we'll be in direct touch and get in touch with you to get that book to you.
All right.
Thank you so much for participating.
Yes, we are going to give another book away at the 6th webinar. So encourage your friends to register and keep registering. Now, one last thing we want to do is to launch our poll and have you all give us some feedback about today and how you thought the presentation went. It's just 2 questions, pretty simple. Please just go ahead and check those boxes. And while you're doing that, I'm going to switch to a new slide. So as you heard already, we do have 3 more sessions after today. And if you go to www.aarp.org/AK, that's where you can sign up. Just click on the story titled "Take Steps Towards a Healthier Brain." You do have to sign up for each session. We kind of debated whether to do it all in one or have people sign up, but some people are only interested in specific topics, and so we've kept them separate. And thank you for doing our poll. And just our last slide here is our contact information. If you have any questions or you want some more information about brain health or any of our upcoming series, we're gonna this fall, well, coming up soon, we are co-hosting with Hawaii a technology series. And then in the fall, we'll host another technology series on various topics. And by going to our website aarp.org/AK, you can see upcoming webinar series. We appreciate all of you coming and spending time with us today. And we especially thank Amber for her great presentation. She's such an excellent speaker. So we recruited her to come and help us out today. Are there any questions, Patrick, that we did not get answered?
I don't think so. Amber was fabulous at keeping an eye and addressing those that went with the talk at that moment, and the others I'll follow up individually with people who have just specific questions about AARP services, etc.
I see a couple of things about privacy, and I just want to say AARP has become extremely secure about privacy. So if you sign up for an event, they'll send you an email. It's a double check. Do you want to be added to the AARP email list? If not, you can opt out. If you become a member, there's a website now. You can say, I only want information about these things, which I signed up for everything, and then I've slowly whittled it down to make sure I'm only getting what I want. And you can unsubscribe at any time. And I would say the worst thing about aarp.org is there's tons of information, which is great, but it's also the worst thing because it's hard to find things sometimes. So if you're having problems, certainly contact us and let us know, and we'll be happy to try and help you find what you're looking for. There's many exercise classes and videos and everything about brain health. So thanks to everyone for joining us today. We are going to end the recording now.